Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Letson, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. On September 1st, Wizards of the Coast hosted a pre-recorded live stream in which they revealed the mechanics for Zendikar Rising, but also the set roadmap for 2021. The announced sets could have a dramatic impact on the Magic story, and since that's what we're all about here at Arcanum, I thought I would put my Lore Mage title to the test and make some long-range predictions based on this very little information. Before I get into it, let me quickly say thank you to my patrons. This show would not be possible without your support, and I am excited to tackle Who is Nahiri later this month as chosen by your votes. Okay, so what is happening in the Magic story in 2021? Well, first we have to finish 2020, and that means talking about Zendikar Rising. Now, previews are happening as I write and record this, so my predictions might already be proven wrong or right by the time this video is published. But that's the risk you take when you're a YouTube celebrity. So in this set, we have already... Hold on. Got a text from Nicole here, and it says, Ryan, forgot to leave note on latest script. You are not a YouTube celebrity. Why would she text that? Anyway, Zendikar Rising in the pre-recorded live stream, which is really a zombie stream. I mean, it was alive before, but now it's not. So let's call that a zombie stream. The zombie stream started with an animated trailer similar to the ones we've gotten recently with sets like Ikoria, Eldraine, and War of the Spark. In it, the Planeswalker Nahiri pulls a Star-Lord and steals the orb, and then makes a run for the door with her friends as the building begins to crumble around them. We then learn that this building is so high, like Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, or Aphrodite. Okay, look, sometimes when I'm writing these scripts, songs just get stuck in my head, and if I have to suffer through that, so do you. The trio flees, and they are chased by the gas station pizza version of My Boy Tectonic Giant, when Nahiri uses the power of the orb to do her best Thanos impression. The merfolk rogue who had been helping her dies from this, and it is very sad because this guy had a card in the set. So they obviously learned their lesson from the Dak thing in War of the Spark. Nahiri shows no remorse for the passing of Zareth, but she does say she's truly sorry for giving Akiri a fatal push, which tells us she is going to continue using this orb, and maybe others like it, no matter the consequences. Okay, but what does this orb actually do? Nahiri only says, no more storms or disasters, no more hellish monsters, this is our chance. Which to me feels a lot like the Ozolith again, a magical rock that has a huge impact on the story, but we never really learn how it actually works. In an article published on the same day by Wizards, it was implied that there could be as many as 7 of these orbs recently returned to the plane's surface after the Skyclaves unburied themselves and resumed flight. Skyclaves were flying cities and military bases constructed by the Corps a long time ago. They housed fabulous treasures like these orbs. And now it seems everybody on Zendikar is eager to go claim them since the Eldrazi threat has passed. In addition to that world-building article, we have been promised web stories, so no ebook for me to recap this time. Instead, we'll get 2 pieces of fiction per week. The first will follow the main thread, so that's Nissa, Nahiri, and Jace. The second will highlight one or more legendary creatures as they go about their own business on the plane. So, my predictions for this main story are that Nissa and Nahiri are the main characters in conflict with each other. Nissa wants to rebuild Zendikar naturally, while Nahiri wants to use her growing collection of magical orbs to force what we tech support agents would call a hard reset. Jace will probably start on Nissa's side, but he might also see the wisdom in Nahiri's method if it really can stop the storms and monsters that are so life-threatening on the plane. Ultimately, though, Nissa will win and Nahiri will flee, probably with one or more of those orbs still in her possession. Now, it's worth noting the Skyclaves were created by the Core when they tried to impose their will across all the continents of Zendikar, and now Nahiri is attempting to do the exact same thing again. I do not think the other citizens of the plane are going to let her just get away with that. So the side stories will probably be about characters like Tazri and Linvala and other heroes from the battle for Zendikar as they make their own stand against Nahiri. During all of this, I predict we will not hear one word about Soren. We won't learn where he went after War of the Spark or how he got out of that wall on Innistrad in the first place. For that information, we will probably have to wait until Q4 of 2021. More on that in a moment. Assuming we actually make it through the rest of 2020 and avoid any asteroids or alien invasions, we'll start next year with our first visit to a plane called Kaldheim. If this sounds familiar, it's because I predicted we would end up here during my Flavorwind video for Garrick Wildspeaker. This is a Norse-inspired plane, and I still think it will end up being his home. So in addition to other Viking warriors like Garrick, I think we'll see a small continuation of the party theme started with Zendikar Rising. Maybe some ice wizards, maybe some rogue group living in the wilderness. There might even be clerics worshipping magic's version of Thor and Odin. Now, I had predicted what wound up being companions as a way to get those gods into the game. I think something like that could still work, maybe with some tweaks. While the landscape may be chilly, I do not think we will see snow-covered lands in this set, being that it is part of Standard, and they have been really hesitant to mess with mana symbols after giving us colorless in Battle for Zendikar. What do you think? Could Standard handle one set of snow-covered permanents? Or would that add too much rules baggage for such a small pool of cards in the format? After Kaldheim, we're heading to another new plane, Strixhaven, which is described as home to the most elite magical university in the multiverse, with 5 different colleges battling it out using their own takes on magic. Once you get past the Harry Potter similarities, you are left wondering a few things. If this place is so great, why have we not heard of it until now? Do the students never actually graduate and move on? Or are we going to retroactively learn that some known characters are in fact alumni of this academic institution? One good candidate is Kasmina, who was introduced in War of the Spark, and when you play her card on Arena, she talks about the wizard tokens that she creates as being her students. And what is she a teacher of, you might ask? Well, her other card in War of the Spark was Kasmina's Transmutation, and Transmutation happens to be one of 8 established schools of magic within Dungeons and Dragons. And I think we're onto something here. This framework allows us to predict all of the schools of magic in Strixhaven. White will be Abjuration, which in D&D focuses on banishment, protection, and invulnerability. Blue will be Transmutation, as I just said, but they might also merge it with Divination, which uses magic to reveal or grant knowledge. Black will be the school of Necromancy, but more in the Golgari style. It will cover both healing and decay. Full circle of life stuff. Red will be the school of Evocation, which deals elemental damage using things like lightning and fire. And green, I think, will be the school of Conjuration, with a focus on familiars and elementals. Dungeons and Dragons has a conjuration spell for plane shifting, which is already a green card. Out of all the things talked about in the zombie stream, Strixhaven, to me, is the most interesting and mysterious. Magic through an academic lens could be a lot of fun, and I'm really curious to see how they explain us having never heard about this place before. Perhaps, like Hogwarts, it is protected by some sort of magical barrier, which makes it impossible to find unless you have been personally invited. Perhaps you get a letter delivered by a Strix? I don't know. And if there's no legendary equipment sorting hat, well, we riot. Anyway, I mentioned schools of magic within Dungeons and Dragons a moment ago, and that was intentional because Wizards of the Coast owns that game, and they are using it for the first time as the backdrop for a full set in Quarter 3 of 2021. That's Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which appears to replace next year's core set with a crossover product unlike anything we've ever seen. My personal hope was that they save this for the Netflix show that we're supposed to be getting, but maybe this is how they test the waters first. Just to be clear, this set is not connected to Strixhaven any more than any other set. I just think Wizards of the Coast is going to let some of the design kind of spill over, especially for things like schools of magic. Zendikar Rising will also enjoy a new wave of fresh clerics, wizards, warriors, and rogues, because as they told us many times in the zombie stream, the classic D&D party was the inspiration for that mechanic. What does this mean for the Magic story, though? Probably not much. I don't think any of our existing Planeswalkers will end up there, except maybe the Wanderer? If anything, though, they might create a few new Planeswalkers who start on that plane and then show up in Magic sets in another year or two. So this will behave a lot like a core set and not really advance the story so much as serve as an introductory point for new players. And that brings us to Q4, which gives us two releases, both set on Innistrad. One is simply called Werewolves, and the other is just Vampires. But those could just be placeholder names? As of writing this, it is unclear if they are both going to be full-sized sets or each only be half a set. Perhaps they will share a sort of common core of cards with a few variations to help push you towards vampires or werewolves as you like. Think of it like Pokemon Red and Blue. I do want to lay down one big prediction here, and that is we will finally learn what happened to Sorin. In fact, I think it was his own grandfather, Edgar Markov, who helped him get out of that rock, and he will be a major part of the vampire half of this release. And that's it. That's all the major stuff that they told us about for 2021. There's also Time Spiraled Remastered in there, but that's all reprints, so it won't touch the Magic story. The only other real wild card is Modern Horizons 2, but I don't think that that will advance the current Magic story. It might let us check in on some other characters, the way Horizons 1 gave us Urza and Sarah and introduced Ren and Six. Curiously absent in 2021 is the Phyrexians. With Nicol Bolas and the Eldrazi defeated, it seemed likely that these mechanized horrors would be the next threat faced by the remaining members of the Gatewatch. Instead, they're being put off at least another year while we learn more about Zendikar's fate and Garrick's origins. Strixhaven might introduce new characters, but I don't expect to see any multiverse-spanning threats. I also don't see any room in the next year to follow up on Liliana, which is unfortunate because her new identity of Anna Iora was really interesting. Perhaps she's hiding out on the Dungeons & Dragons plane? Now, you might be asking yourself, why should I trust this bald guy's predictions? His mustache is ridiculous. Well, longtime fans of the show will remember I did predict companions, and I foresaw Godzilla being a part of Ikoria. And then there's this, Legion Angel, a new card from Zendikar Rising. I had predicted a white card that would use the sideboard as a color-safe way to draw cards in an article I wrote for MagicArcanum.com back in May. So maybe I should be a YouTube celebrity, Nicole. Anyway, by the time you watch this video, some of these predictions might already be wrong, but which ones do you think have the best shot at being right? Let me know down in the comments, and then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!